Welcome to this webinar. I am Professor Anil Kumar from IIT Bombay, and I'll be teaching this webinar today. Today, we'll be discussing process intensification via continuous flow chemistry. I have divided this webinar into three broad themes. The first theme is, what is process intensification? Though it has a simple meaning, we have sort of completely forgotten the basic physical significance of process intensification. Therefore, I'll spend some time in refreshing our high school chemistry to understand what is process intensification. The second theme will be, what is continuous flow chemistry? Since this is a new topic to many of us and is very different from the traditional batch chemistry which we all know, I will take you through this in a very slow pace so that we all can apply our batch chemistry knowledge to learn more about flow chemistry and what are the differences between the two technologies. The third topic is to explain what is the connection between continuous flow chemistry and process intensification. I'm sure by the time we complete the above two topics, you will get a fair idea about this connection. We will also take few industrial examples, both from IIT Bombay as well as from outside, and try to explain how the continuous flow chemistry has been applied for process intensification. Let's start on the first topic, which is, what is process intensification? Process intensification can have various components and hence can be defined in multiple ways. Let us first look into the broad definition of process intensification. The most important and the broadest definition is that any change which improves the rate of reaction without compromising safety can be termed as process intensification. And this increase in rate of the reaction will also lead to the increase in throughput automatically. Another definition can be improvement in process control. This helps in improving safety and also can help in decreasing the batch failure rate. The third definition is improvement in modularity. This helps in improving the maintenance of the production unit as well as replacement or relocation of the production unit. Fourth definition is improvement in handling of runaway reactions. This is the most dangerous part of a chemical production setup, and therefore controlling this is very critical for process intensification. Fifth is decrease in effluent. This is one of the major concerns for the present day chemical production plants. With tightening of regulatory norms by the day, it is expected to achieve the zero effluent production setup and therefore very critical. The next definition is the decrease in carbon footprint. One can improve the process by cutting down on utility and other energy requirements, leading to decrease in carbon footprint. This also is becoming important by the day. The final definition is the decrease in batch size. At present, the cost of production per unit volume decreases when one increases the volume of production. This has implication in runaway or other batch failures. If one can develop a process wherein cost does not change significantly with volume, one can handle the waste from batch failures much more effectively and can handle runaway reactions with better safety. As you have seen, there are many ways wherein you can define the process intensification. What I feel is that improving the rate of the reaction is the umbrella definition, which automatically takes care of other definitions. Therefore, in subsequent slides, we'll now focus on what is rate of the reaction, what are the limitations and requirements to increase this. Let's discuss now what is rate of a chemical reaction. It seems very simple to understand what is rate of the reaction, but it has a deep meaning. As we all know, rate of the reaction is governed by Arrhenius equation. As per this equation, the rate of the reaction, which is nothing but the number of molecules reacting per unit time, can be correlated to two parameters. The first parameter is the fraction of the effective collisions, and the second parameter is the fraction of molecules having energy equal or higher than the activation energy. Therefore, this can be easily confirmed by looking at the units and seeing if the equation is balanced. And it seems to be the balance equation. Now, if one wants to increase the rate of the reaction, then one has got two choices. Either you have to increase the fraction of effective collisions, or you increase the fraction of molecules having activation energy. Now, in subsequent slides, we'll discuss how to achieve that. At this stage, I am sure you all know what process intensification means, its relation to the rate of the reaction, and how rate of the reaction can be increased. Now we bring in the discussion on what is a chemical reaction. The simplest way to define a chemical reaction is nothing but a process of breaking and forming of chemical bonds. If this is the case, then breaking and forming of the bonds requires rearrangement of electrons and orbitals. And this rearrangement then requires rotational and vibrational motions. So therefore, if you understand all these processes, we can easily conclude that the time scale for these events should be in the range of pico to femtoseconds. Therefore, if the reaction between two molecules is all set to proceed, it should happen in picosecond or even lower time scales. Therefore, as per our understanding of basic science, reaction should happen in pico to femtosecond time scale, or at the most you can say sub-nanosecond time scale. However, all the reactions we do in the lab or in the chemical factories is generally conducted in the time scale of hours and days. And that's very strange that reaction should happen in nanosecond, but we conduct in hours and days. And I'm sure this is very shocking to many of you, that why should we do reaction at such a slow rate that we decrease the rate of the reaction by 12 and 15 orders or maybe even 18 orders. Okay, let's look into why we do that. There's a reason for that. The main reason why we do reactions so slowly is because the technology available to us. We generally use batch reactors, and these tools have limited heat transfer rate. So the technology of the batch limits the heat transfer rate, and hence this is the main reason why we do the chemistry at such a slow rate. I'm sure some of my chemist friends must be very happy to learn that it's a technology problem and not the chemistry problem. We all know that the very first reaction is always done by the chemist. However, all subsequent development of productions are the domain of process engineers. I think it's high time that chemists take the lead and take their invention from the very first step all the way to the production. And I assure you that after completing this webinar, you will be in a position to take your first reaction all the way to the real life production. Let's look into this heat transfer limitation issue. If one wants to do a reaction in a safe and controlled fashion, one has to make sure that the rate of generation of the heat, which is from the reaction, has to be slower than the rate of heat transfer. And the heat transfer is the property of the reactor used. This is the universal truth for any successful scale-up, irrespective of the technology used. Let's look into what is the issue with conventional batch technology. If you look here, the heat can exchange only from the surface of the reactor, and hence the heat transfer rate will depend upon surface area to the volume of the reactor used. Once we have a reactor and the utility fixed, our rate of heat transfer is fixed, and that's a maximum heat you can take out per unit time from there. Now, if you want to do a reaction in a safe and controlled fashion, you have to make sure that the heat generated from the reaction is lower than the heat exchange from your reactor and the utility. If you don't pay attention to this, then it can lead to runaway reactions where a lot of heat can accumulate, or hotspots which can lead to side reactions. To make it more clear, let's take some hypothetical example wherein the heat generated from the reaction is, let's say, 200 joules per gram. And based on the reactor and the utility use, the heat which you can take out from the reactor is maximum of 500 joules per hour. Given this situation, a simple calculation will tell you that the maximum rate at which you can do this reaction is 2.5 grams per hour. Therefore, the balance of these two numbers, the heat generation and the heat transfer, decides at what rate the reaction should be done. And these numbers and these rates turn out to be very slow in the hours to days time scale. Based on this discussion, it is clear that reactions happen in sub-nanoseconds. And if we let the reactions happen in this time scale using conventional batch technology, we will not be in a position to take the heat out, and hence it will lead to runaway reaction or explosion. Therefore, in order to do reactions in controlled fashion using batch technology, one has to slow down the reaction to a time scale which turns out to be in hours and days. Now we have the clear basic understanding and relationship between process intensification, rate of the reaction, and what the reaction is itself. From this, it is evident that we need to slow down the reaction significantly if we are going to use the traditional batch technology and if you have to perform the reaction in a safe and controlled fashion. Therefore, the main focus of research for so many centuries has been how to slow down the reaction. And there are many tools available which can be used to slow down the reaction. Dilution is one of the commonly used tool. Dilution, apart from decreasing the rate of the reaction, also increases the effluent and decreases the throughput. Dilution decreases the rate of the reaction because it leads to decrease in the number of effective collision. Another factor which you can use to decrease the rate of the reaction is to decrease the temperature. Temperature will decrease the fraction of the molecules have the required activation energy, and as the rate of the reaction can be decreased. So both dilution and the temperature can decrease the rate of the reaction, and both have the negative impact on the throughput as well as on the effluent. I'm sure by this time you know why we practice the chemistry at a time scale of hours and days, whereas the chemistry should have been practiced in some nanosecond time scale. So I'm sure that the confusion which you had is now gone. This means now you all should be happy with this new understanding and insight into process intensification. Now, let us visit back our Arrhenius equation and discuss what we need to do to increase the rate of the reaction, and which then can lead to process intensification. So we have to increase the fraction of effective collision, or we increase the fraction of molecules have activation energy, or we do both. Do note that the maximum rate which one can achieve is limited by surface to volume ratio of the reactor. And I'm happy to inform you that the recent technology of continuous flow processes allows us to have higher surface area to the volume ratio, and hence we can do the reactions at much higher rate as compared to conventional batch technology. With this, we come to the end of the part 1 of this series, where we have learned what is process intensification, how it is related to the rate of the reaction, and what is the role of technology in deciding how fast one can do the reaction or how intensify a process can be. It all depends on the technology which is available to you. In the second part, we will discuss what is continuous flow process and why they provide an opportunity for process intensification.